have got news for you about the latest crisis in the woke American military. Now, who here remembers when the Pentagon's top brass fought to win wars rather than make the world safe from microaggressions?
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time. I wouldn't give a hoot in hell for a man who lost and laughed. That's why Americans have never lost and will never lose a war.
Those were the days. That was George C. Scott playing the great World War II Commander General George Patton, addressing his troops in what I consider one of the greatest war movies ever made. But what sort of message are American soldiers getting these days?
How do we go about creating a safe space for everybody?
That's a good question. A really good way to do that is to use inclusive language. Instead of saying something like, hey guys, you can say, hey everyone, or hey team.
Yeah, and now that you say that, another way that we could show that we're allies and that we accept everybody is to maybe include our pronouns in our emails, or like we just did, introduce ourselves using our pronouns.
I don't know, I seem to remember when allies meant something different in a military context, but here we are. As the Chinese Navy launched its newest aircraft carrier, what you just saw there, was what sailors in the U.S. Navy were learning for Pride Month. Now, you recall some months ago, we played you a bit of this new woke order U.S. Army recruiting ad.
It begins in California with a little girl raised by two moms. I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age. Standing at the altar to marry my other mom. With such powerful role models, I finished high school at the top of my class. I found it. A way to prove my inner strength and maybe shatter some stereotypes along the way.
How very empowering. That ad appeared around the same time leading Army figures like Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, was testifying to Congress about needing to understand white rage. And that was, of course, just months before he mismanaged America's humiliating and chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, the U.S.'s greatest military debacle since the fall of Saigon. So, what does all this mean? Well, guess what, guys? Ideas have consequences. According to NBC News, in the wake of all of this, every single branch of the U.S. military is now looking likely to fall well short of its 2022 recruitment goals. Now, the experts cited by NBC pointed to a range of factors behind the problem, but it is worth noting that they found that a record low number of those eligible to serve would now even consider it. Just spitballing here, but could it maybe be that those who might otherwise have considered serving are now turned off by the prospect of putting on the uniform to fight and die, not for the values of a human resources department? It's a bit of a worry, particularly considering that there seem to be no small number of defense and foreign policy elites who are seeking to turn Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine into a casus belli for World War III with Moscow. And speaking of Russia, it's worth noting that the recruitment ads seeking soldiers for Putin's army are a little less, shall we say, PC.
Потому что без врага нет боя, а без боя нет победы. Но на самом деле главный враг — это ты. Вчерашний ты. Твоя задача — выследить врага, догнать его, превзойти, стать лучше, чем он, и вернуться назад победителем.
I sincerely hope we're all not about to engage in a real-life battlefield experiment to discover whether or not diversity really is strength.
But the Supreme Court, Rita, has said, sorry, you can't actually go to net zero. You can't actually tell companies to cut their carbon emissions. No, sorry, Joe Biden and the left. You can't actually tell free and independent corporations how much energy they can use. It's a stunning victory. James.
Puts a huge handbrake on their ability to just regulate by fiat, essentially carbon emissions producing energy producers out of existence, which is what they have been trying to do. And Joe Biden right now, again, we joked about it at the start of the show, is blaming Russia on everything. But the fact is, the reason why energy prices and oil prices are so high in the U.S. right now is because Joe Biden has declared war on the American oil industry and on the American fossil fuel industry. He wants them all gone. He wants them all gone. At the same time, he's saying, oh, but can't you guys just produce a bit more oil to get prices down now? The whole point is they want to destroy the fossil fuel industry in the United States, which means, much higher prices. Do not buy this whole thing that, oh, they can just, get it all off of, wind and solar and all sorts of things like that. That's not going to happen. We see in Germany right now what's going on, where they have shortages of everything. Prices are going through the roof. We see this all across Europe. You can't even get firewood in Germany now, apparently. It's gotten that bad. And yet they are doubling down on it. Thank God the Supreme Court has put a brake on what is just civilizationally catastrophic stupidity coming out of this White House.
Talk us through, James, how this really is pure Marxism or Maoism. They're now talking about getting rid of grades in private schools.
So the National Association.
Yeah, obviously, private schools do better. So instead of raising the standards of public schools, let's just cancel grades so we don't know
it's coming
that private
from
schools
within.
are doing better. Yeah.
And it's coming from within the independent schools movement. It's the National Association of Independent Schools. So, the inmates have gotten into the asylum here, too. They are the organization that basically, it's the group that manages, or not manages, but it's a membership group for all the independent schools, very posh ones, very highly expensive ones as well. And they've said, grades, maybe not so much. We need to be more inclusive because there might be racial differences, this, that, and the other thing. So essentially you're going to be making $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year, and you're going to get these bogus report cards that don't mean anything. You won't know if your kid's doing well, but more importantly, you won't know if he's doing poorly.
The Gettysburg Address,
Cornell
Lincoln
University,
bust.
very prominent university in the United States. So they had a display in the library, and there was a bust of Abraham Lincoln, back to slavery, the man who freed the slaves, and a bronzed copy of the Gettysburg Address. So great, icon of American history, ending slavery, holding the Union together, defeating the Confederacy. And somebody complained. Somebody complained about it. So some wokester, some idiot complains and says, hey, he's an old white man and whatever. And it's gone, and nobody is admitting who did it or why they did it. It's just, somebody complained. And this is the real key to it. People have got to speak up, I think, and not just let one person, wind up changing the whole culture. I got to ask, the abortion thing's important, but really the big thing of every American I'm talking to about right now is the economy. And Joe Biden, last year said, but your 4th of July cookout's costing less under us. And now, of course, there's reports that actually it costs $10 more to have your cookout this year. Petrol prices, the shortages, things aren't going so well with the American economy. Talk us through what it's like there, even in Ron DeSantis' Florida. Are you seeing the gas prices? Are you seeing the shortages, things not on the shelves even there?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I mean, especially when it comes down to the baby formula, that's definitely a thing. I mean, I think with the abortion debate and with all the other cultural issues that are going on, it's basically a cover for what the real issue is. And the real issue that the Biden administration is having is that, unfortunately, we have a president who's doing all that he can to stop U.S. oil production, and it's messing up everything, having ripples out to, the war in the Ukraine. I mean, if we were supplying a lot of those European countries that are buying fuel from Russia, Russia wouldn't have the money to keep this war going on. If we had our own American energy like we had with President Trump, a lot of our prices for everything, because energy controls everything. So, I mean, the price of everything will be down because the transportation price will be down. So I think that's really what everyone's talking about, all these other inflationary issues having to do with supermarkets and things like that. But it's really secondary because, honestly, it comes all the way back down to the oil. And they've already a few times have actually been caught saying that they're doing this on purpose. I mean, Joe Biden talked about a transition to, from fossil fuels. And then I think Brian Deet, his financial guy, came the other day and said this is like some new liberal world order. So it's like they're saying the quiet part out loud, but that's the real issue here. And fortunately, thank God, I think that's going to be their ultimate demise in November and in 2024 when President Trump comes back. I do believe he's coming back.
A name change like this costs a lot of money, and the local council has allocated $500,000 in ratepayers' funds to change local signage and names across the LGA.
Locals say it's cash that will be better spent elsewhere.
Maybe they should shop around to get a better price. It seems to me a phenomenal amount of money.
Astronomical.
Infrastructure, roads, healthcare, but they spend the money on the wrong things.
But it gets better. The $500,000 set aside for this transition is a 2-year interim measure, as the council itself concedes, quote, council assets such as street and park signs, smaller facilities signage, whatever that is, staff uniforms and vehicles will be addressed incrementally within existing budget allocations and asset renewal programs over a, get this, 10-year time frame.
Fighting against the colonial Australian system.
Do you have anything to say to the commuters this morning, sir?
Australian colonial system will kill us all if we let it.
So they conflate climate and Indigenous activism the whole time. The colonial system's going to kill us all, James. Are you aware of that?
Look, apparently that's what's going to happen now. But, you know, like, is there any surprise? That right there is a product of the Australian educational system right there in a nutshell. That guy would be absolutely have been the valedictorian, magna cum laude graduate in any Australian high school because he's got it all there. The climate, the civilizational collapse. Colonialism is bad and going to kill us all. I mean, all of the lefty buzzwords there. Tick, tick, tick. Chris Kenny had a great piece about this, by the way, yesterday in The Australian. People should go look up. We teach kids all of this nonsense, and then we are surprised that this is what we get on the streets. Come on.